Hello and welcome. Today I am so excited and honored to be interviewing the amazing Catherine Soley. So Catherine really does a lot of amazing different work, but primarily she teaches some meditation classes and workshops on poisonous plants and other various topics working with plant medicines. So Catherine, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me here.
Oh, it is my pleasure and my honor. I've really been getting into this journey with plants and plant medicines, and I actually signed up for your poisonous plant medicine class one and class two. And I know that you are going to be starting a new round of that very soon, but I was wondering if you could kind of introduce yourself to everyone, tell them a little bit about your story and how you got started on this path and what you're up to now.
Oh, that's always like an interesting question to ask because it's hard to know what exactly brought me here because so many different things. But essentially, I work with plant medicine. Like if I'm just talking to a regular person, I just say I'm an herbalist. Um, but it's probably not a lot of like regular people are listening, so I can kind of go into a little bit more what the way that I work with them. But I work a lot with plant consciousness, or what a lot of people call plant spirit medicine. So, really similar to like the way that you work with crystals, with that they have this energetic medicine, plants do as well. So, um, and I've been really pulled towards poisonous plants, or I kind of want to do air quotes as poisonous because it's the dose that makes the poison. Everything is poisonous. You know, even water can kill you if you have it in a big enough dose. Um, and those plants have just really called me the past few years, and their medicine is, I think, really needed on the planet at this time because they help bring us into the shadows, into our deeper psyches, into our unconscious, into places where um, we're discouraged from exploring in our current society that just kind of only focuses on um, be happy, like be happy all the time. But that, it's great if we can be happy all the time, but there's also this likely like an undercurrent underneath that has like all our life stories and wounds and fears, and that's always going to be there, and that's normal and healthy and part of being human. And I feel like the poisonous plants can kind of, when we work with them on a spirit level or an energetic level, they can kind of help guide us through those spaces that might be normally kind of uncomfortable. um,
I feel so grateful that you're bringing this up because in my personal journey with these medicines, this is exactly when they showed up in my life, was when I really started to consciously dig into that shadow aspect and found that I needed some support. And this was what came through for me. Like, this was what my body, my mind, my spirit all needed to kind of do this work on multiple levels and find that energetic support and that medicine for this really deep dive inner journey, personal healing, transformative, like shadow aspect work. And was it something similar for you personally, like that drew you in, or did this just evolve kind of naturally in your exploration of herbalism?
I think that it's kind of just part of my makeup as a person. Like just even as a little kid, I was always kind of not, I would never use morbid. Like I feel like other people might use that word, but just kind of interested in the aspects of life that people try to keep hidden. Um, and even for many years before I really like fully stepped on the plant path, I was really on a path of meditation and non-duality and kind of Eastern philosophy and Eastern religion, and still am definitely. Um, but a big part of that path for me was working with the archetypes of the wrathful deities. So in Hinduism and Buddhism, you get these, like a lot of people will be familiar with Kali, like kind of wearing a necklace of skulls and holding a severed head. It's like very much not, if you've grown up in Judeo-Christian religion, like that doesn't, if it was ever there, it's not anymore. But it's symbolic, you know, of transformation, of going into like these difficult times, or if you've, you know, worked with astrology, like Saturn, Pluto, like that kind of energy. So um, I feel like that kind of uh, aspect of life has always been felt natural and comfortable to me, and so it made total sense to me once I started working with the poisonous plants. I was like, oh, this is the same thing that I've been doing my whole life, except it's just another expression of it.
Yeah, and that makes so much sense, right? I mean, even thinking about the example of Kali, Kali is the dark goddess, you know, so just as we have almost this like shadow aspect represented there, we see that same shadow aspect, like you said, expressed in other places. And it's beautiful to be able to kind of pull these things together and look at how they can influence us on a personal level, but also their greater influence in the world and how we kind of fit into that. So I'm really curious about what exactly people can do with these plants. And having signed up for your level 1 poisonous plant medicine class, you really cover this really well. But can you just touch on like how would someone actually go about working with these plants as allies, connecting with their medicine?
So, because they're poisons, we have to be a little bit more cautious than, for example, if you were going to work with rose or linden or oat straw or these kind of very gentle, familiar kind of medicines with something that has a higher chance of hurting you. We have to be a little bit more careful because um, I mean, you can actually kill yourself. You can kill yourself, or you can go into altered states of consciousness that are not pleasant. You can cause damage to your organs, like permanent damage. So we have to be really careful. So I never recommend ingestion of poisons. Um, there are cultures who historically and still today do that, but they're doing it under um, a lineage and under a culture that understands how to do that. And for most of us here in the West, that's been like witch trialed out of us. Like, I've never used it that way before, but I mean, we were kind of like severed from these medicines at that time and since then as well. So my uh, ways that I do like to recommend is working flower essences are really safe for energetic medicine essences. It doesn't necessarily have to be the flower. In the way that I work with essences, it can be other parts of the plant as well. But essences, as long as they're prepared properly, they're prepared by someone who knows what they're doing, should be safe and reliable. And then, you know, the other way is with plant spirit communication, which you can do practice plant spirit communication anytime, anywhere, even if you've never met a plant in real life. You can still connect in with their consciousness and receive um, wisdom and medicine and information that is surprising to our rational minds usually. Like, how is this plant that I've never met in person telling me about themselves? And then you can kind of, it's pretty amazing. You can later go look up about a plant and find, wow, these things that I was understanding about the plant in this meditation or in this journey with this plant um, really line up with the actual physical medicine of the plant. It's like, it can be pretty mind blowing at times.
And I love that you work with the plant medicines in this way. This is very similar to my approach with crystals. Like, really pay attention to what your intuition is telling you, what your inner guidance is telling you about which of these plants are drawing you in or trying to speak with you or connect with you, and then go look up maybe a little bit about that crystal or that plant and see how it really relates to your life, rather than always thinking with your conscious mind. Oh, what do I have going on right now with the ego mind, and letting that dictate what you're working with, and instead really kind of turning inward. So you did mention flower essences, and this is something that I think will resonate with a lot of people who are listening or watching right now, because many are familiar with gem essences and crystal essences. So flower essences are very similar. But you said that you did on occasion work with other parts of the plant as well. And I know that for some people it can be really intimidating. Just like with crystals, some are toxic and we don't want to use a direct method of preparation and that sort of thing. People might be really intimidated by creating their own essences, in particular with poison plants. So do you have any recommendations, I'm going to put you totally on the spot, of places where people could find some pre-made essences if they wanted to work with these medicines, but really wanted to go to someone that they knew they could trust and turn to, who have created these with integrity and with good know-how behind them in a safe environment?
Yeah, well, I sell a lot of them in my shop. I also, although I haven't worked with her essences, Sarah Ann Lawless of Bane Folk, I always recommend her to my students for, she makes topical treatments, which is, I forgot to mention that. That's another way we can work with poisonous plants. With some, not all poisonous plants, and people use them topically for pain, like an oil or a salve. And she makes really safe, beautiful salves, but she also has essences. I haven't tried her essences, so I can't speak to them. Um,
I
yeah.
think that's a great recommendation. I have worked with some of her essences and really like them, but the ones in your shop are great too. You have things that I think when many people start to open to poisonous plant medicines and really understand this kind of shadow aspect that they help with and support, you have some that I think come through really strong for many people, like henbane, like belladonna. These are ones that I think many people are, if they're ready to kind of put a toe in and see what this is all about, those are some that I think, at least from speaking with other people, kind of share this interest. Those are ones people I think feel kind of drawn to or called to work with. So I'm wondering if you were going to recommend one or two flower essences or poison plant essences for people to start exploring this realm, what would you recommend that they work with, and how would they actually work with that essence?
I think it's one of those things like what you just mentioned about with crystals, of just kind of trusting what you're pulled towards. You know, I mean, some have maybe like a stronger spirit than others, but some people, which could for some people might be overwhelming, but for some people might feel really relaxing and like familiar to go into those energies. But yeah, belladonna, that's the first plant that we journey with in the 6-week course, because I feel like it's one that we can kind of feel easily. We can, and also belladonna can be a little standoffish as well. Belladonna is also called deadly nightshade, so you might be familiar with it that way. I'm talking about Atropa belladonna is the botanical name. And that can be a good introduction. It's also belladonna's, the energy of belladonna I think is really needed right now, of healing wounds of the feminine.
Yeah. So, we talked a little bit before we started recording about how these medicines from these plants can actually be worked with alongside crystals, and how these medicines can be integrated together. And I know in your shop you even have a few crystals that I think probably pair very well with these medicines, like black tourmaline. What are some of the crystals that you have seen kind of pair well, or how would you maybe recommend people start to mix and match these? And I know, again, it's going to be a lot of personal journey there, but any
Yeah.
tips you have for people?
So And I make gem essences, but I don't sell them as, individuals, but they're in some blends mixed with other like poisonous plant blends, especially like I use black tourmaline essence for boundaries. It's in like this loving boundaries elixir I have in my shop. But yeah, black tourmaline is just my favorite because it's so grounding. It feels protective. And that's also what I get a lot from the poisonous plants. Like there's kind of this crossover there. I feel like onyx can be also another one that kind of has a similar energy. But even, something like rose quartz that's so sweet and gentle. The poisonous plants, depending on how you're feeling and what day you kind of interact with the consciousness of these plants, that kind of, and same with like Kali, like that deity archetype, has that heart loving, gentle kind of energy as well. I'm curious, what do you feel like? I was hoping I could ask you that. Like, what crystals do you feel like pair well with poisonous plants?
Yeah, I've been working a lot with Black Moonstone.
Mm.
Black Moonstone and Datura have been, for me, a very natural combination. I've been really enjoying that. And again, like looking at it instead of our normal like rainbow moonstone or white moonstone, the black moonstone, the darkness, the shadow aspect, the realm of what's hidden, the other world, the underworld, kind of exploring that energy. And also black obsidian. Black obsidian, for me, it's very clearing. And I find that for me, a lot of times, what happens when I'm working with these plant medicines is I shift out of some sort of behavior or pattern or something that's been unhealthy for myself because I have this kind of realization and awakening to what's happening. And it's almost just like someone flipped a switch. And for me, the black obsidian is really clearing of any of that kind of remnant. And then I feel like the crystals, for me, they're dense, they're physical, they're heavy, they're a quick, like intense change. But then you need that lasting support to kind of carry through and really shift and implement and change. And that's for me where the plant medicines really come in, is that more sustained, very gentle, kind of like harmonizing of those shifts that have been facilitated with some of the crystals, which are can be at times even a little bit strong or overwhelming depending on what's going on. And my background is actually in botany and horticulture professionally, and this is something that I've been exploring for such a long time personally, but I really wanted to start just talking about and sharing with people who are interested in crystals because they pair so well together. And it has just been so exciting to have you here talking about this. So we did talk about your shop a few times, Catherine, and it's catherinesoley.com. There will be links in the blog that goes along with this. But I'm wondering, I know that your next poisonous plant medicine round of classes is really filling up, and there may be a few spots left, maybe by the time this episode airs, but I'm wondering if you can tell everybody a little bit about when you're starting your next round of classes or how they can stay in touch with you online or by email to get notified about these.
And then there's going to be a level 2 in January likely, and then a level 3 hopefully will be the first ever level 3, and then I'll be offering a level 1 again in the springtime next year probably. So if you miss out on the September round, there will be another chance to sign up. I also do a lot on Patreon. I do like a 20 to 60 minute video class every month on topics like plant spirit communication, like how to communicate with plants, how to make flower essences, like how to make a really good flower essence, tarot, and last month's was how to make an herbal smoke blend, and just all kinds of things. And so I'm pretty active there. And yeah, my shop, everything can be found at catherinesoley.com.
So when you go to catherinesoley.com, at the bottom, there's a place to subscribe for Catherine's emails, which I highly recommend. You'll find a link to Catherine's Patreon. Also at the top of her website. And then you're also on Instagram at Persephone's Path. And
Yes.
you do a lot over there. You're always sharing the best information. It's a little bit of like teaching, a little bit of behind the scenes of what you're working on. Um, so yeah, I'm so grateful that you were here today and sharing all of your amazing wisdom with everyone.
Thank you so much for having me here, and thank you for giving a voice to all of the energy, all the medicine of the earth, including, I feel like my heart, just the crystals, the energy of the earth, and also the plants that grow alongside, like they're sisters.
They are, yeah, very much perfect matches for one another. So thank you again. I so appreciate it.